Let's now take a look at the anatomy of the eyeball. The eyeball consists of three layers: the fibrous tunic, the vascular tunic, and the retina. The fibrous tunic is the outer layer, and it consists of two parts: the sclera, which is the white of the eye, and the sclera does these things. It gives shape to the eyeball, makes it more rigid, protects its inner parts, and serves as a site of attachment for the extrinsic eye muscles, the muscles that move the eye. The cornea, shown here, is the transparent coat. It helps focus light onto the retina, and of course it lets light enter the eye. The next layer in is the vascular tunic, or uvea. The vascular tunic has a variety of parts. One part is the choroid. This is the layer shown here. The choroid does two things. It has numerous blood vessels that provide nutrients to the posterior surface of the retina. The choroid also contains melanocytes. These are the cells that produce the pigment melanin, and the melanin causes this layer to appear dark brown in color. The melanin in the choroid absorbs stray light rays, so in other words, it prevents reflection and scattering of light rays within the eyeball. The ciliary body, labeled here and shown here, consists of two parts: the ciliary processes and the ciliary muscle. The ciliary processes, shown here, are small protrusions or folds on the internal surface of the ciliary body. They contain blood vessels that secrete aqueous humor, the fluid that's shown here in the anterior chamber, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. As you can see from this diagram, the ciliary processes have attached to them what are called zonular fibers or suspensory ligaments. These attach to the lens. The ciliary muscle is a circular band of smooth muscle. Contraction and relaxation of that muscle changes the tightness of the zonular fibers, and as a consequence it alters the shape of the lens, and thus allows us to focus on objects far away or nearby. And we'll talk more about how that works a little bit later on. Another part of the vascular tunic is the iris, shown here. The iris is that part of the eye that when we say someone has blue eyes or brown eyes, we're referring to the iris. The amount of melanin in the iris determines the eye color. For instance, someone who has brown eyes has a large amount of melanin. Someone who has blue eyes has a low concentration of melanin, and someone with green eyes has a moderate level of melanin. The principal function of the iris is to regulate the amount of light that's entering the eyeball, and it does this through the opening referred to as the pupil, which is simply a hole in the center of the iris. The pupil appears black, and that's simply because the back of the eye near the retina and the choroid is black. But whenever someone takes your picture and they see red eye in the photograph, that's because of the blood vessels being lit up by the flash that's in the camera. There are two sets of muscles that are found in the iris and therefore regulate the size of the pupil, and as a consequence regulate the amount of light that enters the eye. Here we can see in this middle picture the size of a pupil under normal light. If bright light enters the eye, then the pupil constricts due to circular muscles contracting. This is due to parasympathetic impulses that are going to the circular muscles. If on the other hand you're in dim light, as shown here, then the radial muscles contract, and this makes the size of the pupil larger. It's sympathetic impulses that innervate the radial muscles and cause them to contract.